This episode is brought to you by Maestro Sausage, the only sausage we use at Hot Tongue. They produce sausages specifically with pizzerias in mind, and you can tell. So if your sausage isn't hitting all the right notes, let Maestro lead the way. Ladies and gentlemen, back sitting here live at Hot Tongue Pizza here in Silver Lake, Los Angeles, and it's a blazing hot day, and I'm your blazing hot host. Listen, this one is very special to me. I have been listening to this podcast. It's a lot of the reason we only do in-person podcasts because Eric Cacciatore of the Restaurant Unstoppable and the Restaurant Unstoppable Network is an incredible person making podcasts, making content, and doing what he loves. And it was incredible to be on his podcast just a week before we recorded this one. Eric talks to so many different people in the restaurant industry, and there is so much value in what he does. And the amount of people that he's had on his pod that I have listened to and learned from is unbelievable. And Eric himself recently got rid of his house, his car, and everything, traded up, has a truck and a trailer, and it just hit the road with his whole podcast setup, and is just going from state to state and recording people living out of a camper. And it's really inspiring because Eric cares so much about the restaurant industry, the people working in this restaurant industry, how the restaurant industry works, and the future of the restaurant industry. And we kind of tackle all of those things. And it is a very long episode. I felt like I probably could have talked to Eric for another 2 hours. Listening to somebody over the years and then being able to meet them in person, you never know how they're gonna be. And Eric was exactly how I thought he would be. He cares so much about just not only what he does, but about other people and this industry that he has learned so much about just through his conversations with people. And it just shows. I mean, you would think that like Eric himself has been in the restaurant industry for 20 plus years. But I think after hearing so many stories and visiting so many places and being an entrepreneur himself and really just taking the dive and being out on the road and really believing in something himself, it really, you can hear all of that. And I think that there is so much in this conversation that is gonna be of value, at least entertaining, because me and Eric are obviously some of the best podcast hosts out there. You know, I believe that Joe Rogan asks Eric for advice. So, I mean, that's just something to think about. But it was really special. And also, I don't know if it'll be out by the time we drop this podcast, but people have asked me to sit down on this podcast and be interviewed. But instead, I decided to sit down with Eric, and I basically go over for 2 hours my whole story. If you're interested in listening to my voice anymore, which I can understand if no one is, it was a great conversation. I really start from moving out to Los Angeles and being a musician to where I am now at Hot Tongue, and it was really special. But this conversation that I had with Eric is one that I'll never forget, and I know is going to have a lot of value for everyone listening. Eric says something that I really like in the podcast. He multiple times, he says the restaurant industry is going to save the world, and I hope he's right. But you know what I do know is right? Is that Back in Black is one of the hardest songs, and that AC/DC, thunder, thunder. All right, enjoy this podcast. Buckle up, because it's a long one. Power and progress forever. Eric Cacciatore, ladies and gentlemen, of Restaurant Unstoppable. Let's go. MailWise Solutions takes advertising to the next level. They design, print, and direct mail, menus, flyers, and postcards for pizzerias all across the United States. I've worked with MailWise before. I tried to design my own menu, and Kevin said, hey, give me a stab at this, and holy shit. When he sent me back the menu, I was like, I thought I was okay at what I did, and his design team blew me away. There's no mailing contracts, so you're free to advertise on your own schedule. Click the link in the show notes or request a sample pack at mailwisesolutions.com. Let's get you some new customers today.
If you're running your restaurant down to the penny, you know, and you're accounting for all the ingredients that are going and you're weighing and you're doing inventory, theoretically, it should just push. But most restaurant owners don't do that.
No, it's true. Man, that would be very beneficial for a restaurant like this where like I'm doing so much gluten-free
Right.
and vegan stuff. They ask about all the different
Right.
oils, what grains are you using?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's a constant struggle.
And the consumer's only getting more savvy with ingredients. And I think, dude, back to my theory and why I think the restaurant industry is going to change the world, you know?
Yeah. Well, because what?
I mean, it's food, man. It's life. It's like the most intimate thing, you know? And as the consumer gets more intelligent and more conscious about what they want to eat, like we have to be there for the consumer. And furthermore, I think we can influence the consumer to say like, you want to be healthy? Like, don't eat processed shit.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Well, don't you think a lot of restaurants have been yeah,
oh,
that's
cool.
kind of how we do it.
Sweet.
Just so it's natural, you know?
Yeah, I dig it.
I feel like there's a lot of restaurants out there that have already been pushing that, whether they haven't been doing the greatest job of it, but they've been on the forefront of, you know, being able to do a fast casual restaurant and have their ingredients be, you know, a tier up than like a regular restaurant, making it front and center that they are using clean ingredients.
Right. And the farm to fork or farm to table movement isn't new, you know?
No, not at all.
It's just hard, you know? It's hard because your cost of goods are so high and you're typically changing your ingredients weekly, you know, depending on what's available. So it's a real challenge. Anyway, yeah.
Why do you think that consumers are thinking more and more about what they're putting in their body, or not thinking about what they're putting in their body?
I think it's just a matter of being aware for the first time.
Yeah.
Conscious of it. Like, I don't think, you know, you go back to the 80s and 90s, I don't think people were thinking as much about what they were putting into their body and how that made them feel. But as we learn more about the body and the ecosystem we're in, the food system we're in, we're realizing that there's a direct correlation between what we put in our body and how we feel. Now they're talking about the gut biome, right?
Yeah.
All this new information, like how your gut affects your mental health. So why are consumers doing it? Selfishly, honestly, because of what's in it for me. People don't do anything until there's something in it for them.
Yeah.
Right. So I think what's in it for them is wellness. And I think especially Los Angeles, the West Coast, you know, Phoenix, San Diego, like those are very conscious forward communities.
Yeah.
Where everyone's trying to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
So if you appeal to that consumer and that psychographic and you let them know, like, this is what's in it for you, and guess what? It's not going to be cheap because this comes at a cost.
Yeah.
You know? But back to the point of not being cheap, food has gotten so cheap over the past, 70, 80 years from post-World War II to today. There was a slow like shift towards a centralized food system, making food affordable, putting a lot of the economics, the government was trying to figure out how they can feed a bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
And like I feel like all the energy after the war went into the food system to like streamline that. But the side effects were just creating very unsubstantial food that's not really making people healthy, you know?
Yeah.
And we had no clue. It's the world we came up in, and that we acclimated to like this $9% of our income goes to food, the average household. Prior to World War II, it was 20%. So like we just don't know any different. If you were alive during that time, you're likely not alive today.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Well, it's cheap and easy.
Yeah.
And convenience. 7-Elevens.
Right. I mean, it's just the world we grew up in.
Go get your cream cheese taquito.
We're both 38, right?
Yes.
Do you know?
I just turned 39, and
happy
my
birthday,
back told
bro.
me. Thank you.
Yeah. But like all we know is the world we came up in, and that we came up in a world of processed fast food.
Yeah, like Gushers and Cheetos and like
and
Captain Crunch.
And how many people do you know can't eat bread?
A ton. A ton. A lot of people, you know, whether they're celiac or gluten intolerant or whatever, but I mean, like,
or it's food allergies.
It's a lot of food allergies, especially nut allergies. Like, there's growing up, there might have been like one kid, one of them being back there, Andrew, my general manager, has a nut allergy. But like now at my son's school, it seems like there's like 6 or 7 kids.
Dude, can you imagine an existence without PB&Js?
I mean,
It's criminal.
I can, dude. I have to make my son like sunflower seed, butter.
Don't know what
sandwiches.
I would have done as a child if I couldn't get my
Dude,
PB&Js.
peanut butter is fire.
Dude,
It is so good.
it's so good.
But yeah, that's all consequences of shitty food. I mean, it's still crazy that like I get a loaf of bread like Dave's or Nature Valley or whatever, this like whole wheat bread, but like it lasts for 2 weeks. I go get a loaf from Bub and Grandma's, like it is not soft after 4 or 5 days. It's a sourdough loaf and like it's like 4 ingredients.
Yeah, just throw that thing in the toaster. And it'll
True. You toast it up, throw some avocado on it. It's fire. All right, I wanted to ask you this because you ask all of your guests at the beginning of your show for a mantra or like a inspirational quote.
Yeah.
So I'm asking,
man.
What is yours?
I have 2 that helped me get the inspiration to start my podcast. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know exactly, and I can't remember the source. But if you make your life about helping enough other people achieve what they want in life, you can have anything in life. And that was when I heard that quote, it was like, I might not be in the position to open a restaurant, but I'm passionate about this industry. And if I make my life about serving the people who are in the position, who are going through it, to give them resources and inspiration, then someday I can have my vision, my dream come true. And then I think the other thing is if you're looking for something and you can't find it, there's a good chance you're not the only person looking, and there might be an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So service is a big thing.
Exist to serve. Yeah. And that's been kind of like the underlining, one of the biggest lessons I've learned in doing the Restaurant Unstoppable is just, if you make it about everybody else, your job is to literally exist to serve everybody else. And if you do that, then it comes back around. You can't track it, but you just have to have faith that if you lift up others, if you empower others, if you help others grow, if you make sure other people's securities are met, then you can create a pretty great team around yourself.
Do you feel like you have gotten the blessings that you want from your service?
Dude, my visions are big. I think it's a curse for all entrepreneurs. Like, it's always not where I am, how far have I made it, but how far am I from where I want to be?
Yeah.
It's always looking to a new horizon.
Yeah.
So when I take the time to stop and reflect and think about how far I've come, it's crazy. 10 years, over 1,000 episodes. They talk about freedoms being freedom of, like the 4 freedoms: freedom of life, freedom of money, freedom of time, freedom of relationships, freedom of purpose. And I pretty much have all those freedoms. You know, I'm not like, you could argue maybe not freedom of money because I don't have cash like coming out my ears, but I get to live the lifestyle I want to live.
Yeah.
You know, I get to serve the purpose that I want to serve. I get to choose the people I surround myself with. And, you know, in full transparency, the podcast brought in $202,000 last year after taxes and operational expenses and all my, just paying my people. I made $80,000. That's not huge money, but for a single guy, you know, like, it's enough money to have freedom of choice, freedom of relationships, freedom of purpose, all those things I talked about.
Yeah. I have talked about freedom. That's my favorite part about being an entrepreneur, is that you are locked in on a lot of other things.
Right.
You know, it's not pure freedom, but the freedom to
purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something really that I liked when I talked to you for the first time on the phone. I said, well, a podcast isn't going to make you rich. And you go, well, it depends on what rich is to you.
Right.
Like, I feel pretty rich. I'm, driving around doing what I want to do. And,
yeah.
Monetarily, maybe I'm not the richest person, but
right.
I'm rich.
You know, the greatest form of currency for me are those messages I get from complete strangers that say, you've literally helped change my life.
Yeah.
You know, knowing that you're living your mission, when you show up every day with a mission statement to change the world and you are in it every day, you don't sometimes see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
You know, in the restaurant industry, it's very like in the moment, like, I'm providing the service for you. You're either leaving happy or disappointed. But if you're leaving happy, and I see the smile on your face, and I see the reaction of your face when you're taking the first bite, and I see that I'm creating this experience for you, you're instantly getting that return on your time and your investment, that my work is being seen, I'm being valued.
Yeah.
So as a podcaster, you're kind of removed from the end user. You know, like I'm recording this in Los Angeles, and that there could be somebody in New York listening to this getting inspiration.
Yeah.
So when you get those messages that just for the sake of like letting you know, like, thank you for the work you do, like that's the currency that keeps me going.
Yeah. And I must say, you're very good at what you do.
Thank you.
And I would say I didn't know that I was good at what I did until you started getting that feedback. And you know what I think the same thing that we share is that when you sit down and have those conversations, like you're curious.
Yeah.
You want to have those conversations. You want to talk to those people. Like you can feel that it's like a very authentic conversation and you care about what your guest is saying.
Thank you.
You've done your research, and I'm sure that you've had guests on where you're like, maybe you haven't, but in 1,000 episodes plus, I would say that there was probably some harder episodes to have when you sit down and it's like pulling teeth.
Not all conversations are created equal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, at the same time, sometimes there's been a circumstance where I recorded an interview and I was like, that was garbage. Should I even publish this?
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, you know, it's not up to me to decide what's a good conversation. So I published it, and somebody commented on that episode how it was exactly what they needed to hear.
Yeah.
So I think good advice is relative.
Yeah.
You know, good advice, while I didn't resonate with it, there's somebody out there who's going through exactly what that person's gone through.
Yeah.
Or, you know, had that one thing that they needed to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could keep going on that, but I don't need to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is crazy because I've had that same experience where you're like, man, what was that?
Right.
And then even like, I don't know, do you rewatch or like listen to your conversations?
Only to edit.
Okay.
And hopefully, as of this week, I will be delegating the video editing. So I was doing the audio editing for like the first 3 years. Then I outsourced that. And now my audio editor, who's been doing the audio with me for like 7 years, is going to be taking over the video editing. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Yeah.
Because it will let me focus on being more present and chasing the story.
Yeah, of course. Well, because also just like you had the conversation, I know I have Matt over here who has to probably listen to my voice more than my wife. But I mean, sometimes it's like I'll re-listen to an episode. He'll be like, I'll make sure this is good because you were saying all that crazy stuff, you know. He's like, did I censor you enough? And I'll go back and be like, man, I had the conversation, but it's funny how you can miss things yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I really don't edit at all. The only time we ever edit is if somebody is like, you know, hindsight being 2020, talking about that business partnership. I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, definitely gonna re-listen to my episode for sure.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, you know, I get my guests to talk about things that are hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Things you're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, social norms out the fucking window. Like, hey, we're here to get vulnerable. I'm here to dive deep into your biggest fuck ups and like how you overcame those things and what you learned from those things so we can pay it forward. So we don't, as an industry, make these stupid. We're unaware of the things that we do because nobody ever talks about them.
Yeah.
You know, so if you can get that information out, if you can say like, hey, do you have partners? Do you have a partnership agreement? You know, like what's an extra $5,000 when you're spending $250,000, $500,000 to like start, like spend the extra $5,000 to get a lawyer involved to make sure that everybody knows who's responsible for what and to protect. It's not that you don't trust these people. It's that you care for them and you want to protect them from you.
Yeah.
Like, cause you might like things change over time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you also, you interview everybody from like a one shop owner to like full restaurant group CEOs. And so through the years, I've gotten plenty of information like that because starting out, you might not even know what a partnership agreement is.
Right.
And people get into partnerships without using these things.
Why do people open restaurants for the most part?
Because somebody told them they were good at cooking.
Yeah. Like usually, yeah. Like, hey, you're good at
Like,
this.
yo, like you should do this.
And you like being seen for being good at cooking or creating a good experience for other people.
Yeah.
It's not because you like drafting partnership agreements
course, yeah.
or, you know, getting into restaurant insurance and shopping around and thinking about what insurance might I need. Like, you don't think about this stuff.
Yeah.
There's so many things that come into or marketing, like I didn't start a restaurant to become an expert marketer, but if you don't know anything about marketing today, and if you're not just like some phenom of a chef that just brings people flock to you, like you're gonna have to promote yourself somehow.
Yeah.
So there's all these other variables that get people in trouble in the restaurant industry because they think it's just feeding people. No, it's running a business. It's doing a bunch of shit you don't want to do.
I purchased a Gosney Arc XL recently, and the bake has been so consistent. The bottom heat of the oven and the actual arc just cooks the crust to a caramelized perfection. There is no other oven, in my opinion, out right now that is going to give you these same results. Whether you are in need of a new oven for your pop-up or your dad's asking you, what is the best oven to make some homemade pizzas? Use our affiliate link down in the show notes. Smash the link. It helps the podcast. And more importantly, it helps you. And that's what you get from a lot of your interviews. I mean, like I always say making the food is the easiest part.
Right.
Food shows up, usually as long as your purveyor's on time. They show up, they don't talk to you. Like the food is there.
Right.
You put it in the oven, you cook it. It's everything after that.
Yeah, cooking and creating the experience is the easy part.
Yeah.
It's profiting from that. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Are you doing budgeting? Are you doing costing? Are you doing purchasing? Like are you really drilling down? Are you doing are you drilling down your labor? Are you following all the data, the numbers, and trying to fine tweak every little system and process to be more efficient? Like it's a never ending battle. And as you get better, the world gets more difficult. Yeah. The competition gets better.
Yep. And in that, trying to create culture.
Right.
And outside of just taking care of your insurance and your taxes and your partnership agreements and all that stuff, then it's your restaurant systems that we kind of talked about and this culture building. I mean, again, I talked about this in the pod that we did, but that first episode with Ari from Zingerman's, he said so much. You've had him on multiple times.
Yeah. He's actually going to be connecting with him when I drive back out east. The first time in person, we're going to do an interview. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Very sick.
Making a little detour to Ann Arbor, Michigan.
I think that's well worth it. I mean, that guy, the first time I listened to him was on your podcast, and that sent me down a deep rabbit hole of
Which episode did you catch?
It was the first time he was on your pod.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Yes.
Then. Yeah.
Well, I would go back. I'd go back and look because I think I listened to him or saw that he was on your podcast more than once, so I listened to all of them. But I mean, just capturing those kind of people,
right?
Was it when you were you recommended to him or?
Well, I think the show's evolved. When I first started, it was literally educating people on what a podcast was. I started in 2014, and the restaurant industry isn't necessarily known for being early adopters of new things. Right?
Absolutely not, yeah.
So a lot of people I was interviewing are like, what the hell's a podcast? And so I would have to explain that to them. But early on, I was looking through basically your media, your major media outlets like James Beard, Thrillist, Eater, Michelin star. I was going after the award winners and the people getting the press.
Yeah.
Because that's all I knew. How do I find these people? So I would just follow the media.
Yeah.
And then, Ari was somebody I think who was referred to me or recommended to me. I can't remember exactly how I discovered him, but I got into his books, The Lapsed Anarchist Approach to Fill in the Blank, Building a Better Business, Becoming a Better Leader, Leading Oneself. I think there's 2 or 3 others. I can't remember all the titles.
It's like a straight religion.
Yeah. So he's amazing. I can't remember how I found him, but I just remember, I think, just really loving his work. And his books are written for me because they're essay format. So you can pick it up anywhere and read a 3-page essay and be done. You walked away with something. Yeah. Where being dyslexic, to sit down and read through a book from front to beginning, I just don't have the attention span / I don't enjoy reading. Yeah. Audiobooks have been a game changer for me.
Me too.
Yeah, for sure. But
real quick, you started podcasting in 2012 because of an assignment in college?
Yeah, it was 2012, 2013.
Because I didn't even know what a podcast was until like 2014.
Right, neither did I.
Like
Neither did I.
I was like, I think Bruce is the only podcast, Bruce from Smart Pizza Marketing, that I started listening to that early, just because it was like niche pizza shit.
Yeah. So when I was 27 years old, I went back to school for marketing and hospitality after being a commercial pilot. And like one of the first lessons, one of my first classes was with a professor, David Mazer, who would later become a mentor. But the first impression I have of him, the first class is he walked in the classroom, he put his stuff down, he turned around, he wrote his name on the board. And the first thing that came out of his mouth after like introducing himself was, who here listens to podcasts? And like, these are a bunch of like 20 somethings sitting in a room, 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
Not a single hand went up. And he walked out of the classroom. This is a community college. You know, like how there's those wooden doors, like the glass, like the thin glass window.
Yeah.
That's like,
you
that the bar is going through it.
Yeah.
He walks out. You can see him through the window, look left to look right to make sure there's nobody around. And he yells, "You've got to be fucking kidding me," to make a point. He's very dramatic, you know?
Sounds like
Then you walk back in and he's like, "You're missing a huge opportunity to like learn anything you want to learn and to get inspiration. And your homework assignment is to go home and to search 3 subjects and find one podcast under 3 subjects and come back and tell us what you learned." And that was the assignment. So for me, it was marketing, personal growth, and entrepreneurism. Wait, no. It was marketing, entrepreneurism, and hospitality. Those are the 3 that I went to go look up. Tons of marketing, tons of entrepreneurial type podcasts, 0 restaurant hospitality type podcasts. So that was like my first subconscious clue that there was an opportunity. But I don't know what you're looking for, so I'll stop there.
No, that's good. I mean, like, so that was the moment you're like, I'm going to do this.
Well, that was the moment where I was like, oh, I have a homework assignment. I'm going to go look up these podcasts.
Yeah.
And it was after looking up the podcast that I got hooked. So I found these marketing podcasts. I was a marketing student. I found these entrepreneurial podcasts. I was into the idea of sales. So like, because I was taking these sales classes, I thought again, like entrepreneur, like marketing, entrepreneurism. Then hospitality obviously was the other side of that.
Were you always attracted to the restaurant industry?
I mean, I was born into the industry.
I was born in the darkness.
I was 3 years old. My earliest memories are in a restaurant. So my parents opened a restaurant when I was 3 years old in 1985. They had that restaurant for 10 years. When my dad opened the restaurant, he was a corrections officer in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And he would go work the night shift and I think he would do he'd get home at like 4 a.m. and then the plan would be to go to the restaurant, open the restaurant, and cook breakfast. And it was going to be a breakfast restaurant, and he was going to do that for a while. I know,
damn,
crazy,
that sounds
right?
terrible.
I know. Like how often do people do shit like that in their late 20s and early 30s to get their dream going, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know how deep you want to go into the backstory, but basically, my dad moved to New Hampshire from Boston, 100% Italian. It was New Hampshire was like what I call a food desert at that point. There wasn't a lot of cultural food in East Bumfuck, New Hampshire. So he was like, I need to create what I'm looking for. If you're looking for something and you can't find it, odds are you're not alone.
Yeah.
So he started a restaurant because there was an opportunity, because nobody was cooking the food that he grew up with. Mm-hmm. So the plan was that he was going to have his full-time job. I mean, the story kind of gets crazy. I don't know if my parents listen to this podcast, which I don't think they would. Like, the story is like he was doing that and he ended up getting fired from his job, but nothing from what he did. There's a whole family drama behind it. Like, it's crazy. I tried to get him to talk about it when I interviewed my parents.
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy do you want to get?
I mean, we like to get crazy.
I feel like it's a story, and my parents don't like to talk about it. My dad doesn't like to talk about it out of respect to my mom.
Yeah.
Because basically what ended up happening, he hired, well, I don't know if he hired, but my uncle was hired at the jail. My uncle was selling drugs to the inmates.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So my dad, because it's his brother-in-law, automatically got grouped.
He was in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So he was like he was a shift command. Like, he was like at the top. Like, if he stayed with that job, he would have retired at the age of like 55 or 60 with a pension.
Yeah.
You know, he would have been set. And the restaurant was going to be a side hustle. And eventually he was going to pay people to work it, but he was just getting it started. But when he lost his job, he had to go full time at the restaurant. And it was a hard time for my dad, like a real hard time. Like, you have this job, you're set for the rest of your life. Your knucklehead brother-in-law gets you fired. Really what it comes down to is that I don't know if you know much about Boston politics or like corruption with like the police department in the 80s.
Yeah, no.
But the chief of police was friends with my uncle and got my uncle the job.
So
my dad was the fall guy.
So your dad didn't get him the job?
No, my dad was the fall guy, basically, because I think it would have traced back to the chief of police. And the chief of police in Boston at the time was corrupt.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a whole fucking story, dude.
Jeez.
Like, there were hits put out, like...
Damn, dude.
Yeah, like it's a family secret. It's a family, like, until now. But I think that it's just a perfect example of how fucking crazy things. Like, you can have a plan. You can go from set for life. I've made it. I have a job that will help me retire, give me security for my family. I can start growing other businesses to... I just lost my whole life plan overnight for something I didn't do.
Yeah.
There was all they sent like 3 cruisers up to New Hampshire to come get my dad. And like, so now you have all these, like, his reputation is going down the drain.
Yeah.
His life plan is going down the drain. He basically, I mean, he's a very prideful dude. I know that he had to see a psychiatrist after this because, you know, like, it was
fucked him up.
It was forced.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, you need to go see somebody because this is like serious, you know? And he had like the most classic case of job related stress ever. And he could have sued and he could have been all set for the rest of his life. But he was very prideful. He was a typical, you know, late 20s, early 30s, young guy. He didn't want that.
Yeah.
You know, so he just swallowed it and like put his head down and went to work at the restaurant. So crazy, huh?
Very crazy.
Right.
I mean, and how long did the restaurant?
10 years.
10 years.
Yep. So
Till he was like, fuck this.
Yep. So from the time I was 3 to 13, I grew up in the restaurant. It was my daycare. And then as soon as I could lift the trash out of the trash bin.
You were working.
Yeah. I was taking the school bus to the elementary school, or from the elementary school to the restaurant. And I would take the trash out and mop sweep every day, making like $30 a week when I was like 10 years old.
Solid wage, dude. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of candy money, dude.
That's a lot of cake.
Yeah. So basically did that. And when I was 13 years old, we were going to relocate the restaurant from like behind like this general store to like a corner lot. And this is another crazy story it was called Carmen's Chicken was where we're moving. Major intersection, middle of town, parking, all the things you want for a restaurant. The woman that owned that property, Carmen, was 93 years old. There was a chicken stand there for the longest time. And they came to terms. My parents were going to buy this restaurant from Carmen. The morning that they were going to get up to sign the paperwork to make it official, she passed away. And the building got liquidated and went to the family.
Of course.
So, and we at this point their lease was up on their current location, and you know what it's like. Don't run a restaurant; it's week to week. It's day to day.
Yeah.
So they couldn't afford to like figure it out. So they got jobs. And my mom was like, thank God, because like she never wanted the restaurant. It was more my dad's dream. So she went to go work for Comcast, Xfinity. She was there until like last year. She retired, and my dad's selling real estate.
And he has been selling real estate since?
He's been doing it for about 20 years now.
Okay.
But he, had to take the classes, and he was just doing whatever side job he could do until that point, until he could build up his real estate.
Would they say that losing the restaurant was a positive?
I would say so. I mean, I think it definitely, it was the kind of restaurant, it was successful from the outside looking in. Lines out the door. People always said amazing things. Our version of like, Phantom Gourmet would come by, which was like Boston's like food, like critic.
Yeah.
And like for them to come out of Massachusetts to go to New Hampshire, you got to be doing something special.
Yeah.
And people would drive hours to go to my parents' restaurant because my dad his passion is food. He wakes up, he's talking about what we're going to make for breakfast. And before breakfast is done, it's what's for dinner.
Yeah.
That's my dad. So like his passion was food, and he brought all this, like the food he grew up with, to New Hampshire. And there's a lot of other like people moving from Massachusetts to that part of southern New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So it was a successful restaurant. What they weren't good at was making money with a restaurant. They were good at
It's very hard to do.
You know, the whole reason, like a big part of why I started my podcast was like, what the fuck were my parents doing wrong?
Yeah.
Like, how come we can't go on vacation? How come we struggle to pay the mortgage? And it's because the business depended on them. It was a people dependent operation. If they didn't show up, the restaurant didn't run. They didn't do what should I charge, for this burger? What are they charging down the street? Well, we should charge less because we're in a worse location. So like they're giving food away, and the portions were crazy. So he was probably selling food at 60% of what he should have been selling it for. If I had to guess, at least 70% of what he should be selling it for, because of the portions and because of how he was coming down on all of his costs. So all the things that we know today that we take for granted, like systems, processes, procedures, recipe costing cards, menu engineering, all these things to increase your profits in the 1980s.
Yeah.
That stuff wasn't available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have the tech, and I don't think that, I don't know. I wasn't there in the 80s or the 90s in the food industry, but I just feel like there was probably a little less to worry about.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but the same things to worry about, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm romanticizing those times. Because I'm sure it was the same problems.
Right. Were there, go ahead.
No, you go.
I think what you're saying is it was more romantic to it was more to the root of what hospitality is. Show up, come into my place, let me feed you, let me love you. And if you're good at that, you could survive.
Yeah.
But today there's so much more.
Yeah, there wasn't social media.
Right.
There was probably a lot less people in the game of restaurants.
Oh yeah. There's more restaurants today per capita than ever before.
Yeah. I think you've said that in the pandemic, the restaurant industry was eating itself.
Right.
Because of how many service hospitality restaurants were popping up.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that retail just went away.
If your sausage needs aren't hitting all the right notes, then let Maestro lead the way. Maestro has been working closely with pizzerias for decades. They produce sausages designed specifically with pizzerias in mind. And you can tell, their Italian sausage crumbles look like they were handmade in your shop, and they will taste that way as well. With over 80 years in business, family owned and operated, the family is incredible, and so is their product. It's quality sausage with quality ingredients. Click the link in the show notes. A classical masterpiece awaits you. Back to the show.
All this retail space and all these developers and all these property owners are like, shit, we can't get paid rent because nobody can stay open because everyone's buying their shit on Amazon today.
Yeah.
Everyone's buying all their retail online. So the only thing that works in retail space today is experience-based models, and restaurants are huge experience-based models. So now you have these developers throwing money at the next generation of chefs who are trying to drive traffic to their retail spaces. Then all these restaurants popped up, So never before have there been so many restaurants.
Yeah, and ghost kitchens.
Right. So there's more competition than ever before.
We touched on this off camera, but you have a very positive outlook for the restaurant industry.
Yeah, man.
And maybe I'm a bit more pessimistic because I feel with ghost kitchens and like DoorDash and Uber Eats, they're creating their own ghost kitchens that you can buy into, their cloud kitchens, and just kind of what I've seen with dine-in going down. And just at Hot Tongue alone, it's 30% of our business is Uber Eats.
That's crazy.
It's, and we talked about the metaverse and possibly what these goggles or VR will do.
Yeah.
I feel like people are getting a little bit more disconnected from reality. And this is such a very up in your face, let's have a conversation, sit down, let me feed you. And I want to believe that that's always going to be important, but there's a part of me that believes that we're getting farther away from that.
Yes, and I think that I think we're going in that direction, but we don't know the repercussions of that decision yet. on our mental and physical health. And I think when you look at like using the food system as an example, we're talking about that. Like we thought we were doing the right thing. We thought that we were making food more available, more affordable, more accessible, at the expense of, maybe spreading out the expense of, convenience, I guess, So I think, but after, 40 years, 50 years of going in this direction, to the points we made earlier, people are sick, people have all these allergies. We basically destroyed the food system. The earth is not healthy. We're not healthy. And you see a lot of people who are in the position, like there's a conscious event happening where people are like, I'm choosing to do the more expensive, slow thing because it's what's best for me and my body. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that as we dive more into the world of the metaverse, and I think you're seeing it with Gen Z right now. There's like this, we're starved for the human connection. It's so hard to be a human today. Like even in the world we're in, like what kind of expectations are on you to like go to live events like online? You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean?
Like meetups online, like digital obligations.
Yeah.
Whether it's online meetups or an interview online, or you're just staring at a computer screen all day, like you're watching, like there's so much screen time.
Yeah.
Like we're just being pulled, and like we're being told that if we're not looking at a computer screen, we're gonna fail. Because we need, like we have to be on social media, we have to be commenting and looking at all these reviews at the expense of what's happening in our four walls. Like every minute you're looking at your computer, you're not looking in the eyes of an employee asking about their life and learning more about them.
Yeah.
You're not paying attention. Every minute you're, trying to create a video to promote your business, you're not paying attention to like, what is the person in my restaurant right now doing? How can I bring that person back?
Yeah.
So you're asking me about my optimism for the industry.
Yes.
And as we move into a more digital world, I think at the end of the day, if you believe in Moore's law, you believe the world is evolving exponentially, the technology is evolving exponentially, and we're moving in this direction that's inevitable. And I think that is going to be a fragment of society that's inevitable. Technology is always going to improve. But the one thing that I think people don't take into consideration is that people are still sacks of meat. We're still humans. The world is evolving at a rate faster than the average human can keep up with the trends. Or like you learn how to do something for your business in terms of technology, wait 6 months. There's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Or you're constantly having to like update and do things differently to leverage the latest technology to have the most slight edge on your competition.
Yeah.
But that world is evolving so fast that people are just like, I can't keep up with the rate of evolution, especially the rate at which AI is improving, and like the ways to leverage AI. People who are in the restaurant industry are more interested in human connections, right? I think that it's going to be real soon, if not already, too hard to keep up with the change. And I think the other variable is what we need. All we need is each other. And I know that sounds super woo-woo, but like, if you look at human evolution, anthropology, you study human psychology over time, like we're learning so much about, like, as we're learning more about technology and our technology is improving, we're also learning about the human technology, the organic technology of like, how does this brain work? What's going on between these ears?
Yeah.
And we're learning so much about that at the same time, but everything we're learning about that is saying all you need is to see others, appreciate others, like we're just learning so much about what it takes to be happy.
Yeah.
And it all says do the opposite of what the marketers are telling you to do. Like be present, live in the now. Like how do you be present? You put the shit away. You look into someone's eyes. You travel across the country to sit across from them from a table, and you have real human experiences. You can't get what we are getting right now online. You just can't do it. You can laugh, you can be entertained, but there's gonna be something missing. And why I brought the whole food thing is like when we're eating that cheap processed convenient food, there was something missing, nutrients.
Yeah.
And I think there's something missing in society today, and it's the the energy is the nutrients, the energy that you're getting from other people, the energy of being seen in this moment and valued for what you do and what you bring to the table. That is human. Those are human needs, to be seen, to be valued, to be loved. Right after security, right? And then after that, it's personal growth. And as we're learning about what it takes to grow, it's not getting better at technology. It's getting better at being human.
Yeah.
It's getting better about being self-aware.
Yeah.
It's getting better about communicating to people your appreciation for them and seeing them. And when you see other people and you value other people, there's reciprocity. I don't know why that's a word. Reciprocity. It's reciprocal.
Yeah.
So I think the more we learn about what we need to be happy, we're all selfish at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We all want what's best for me.
Yeah.
And what's best for me, what's best for you is to put the shit away, to put the tech away and to be humans. And that's why. And where is there a better place for people to be humans? What's the most human thing? Aside from like maybe sex, what's the next best human thing?
Food.
Yeah. Dude. So when we realize, I think what's going to happen is that it's going to come out of a selfish place. What's in it for me? But I think all signs point to that as far as what's the clear and obvious choice.
Yeah.
And there's data backing it up.
Well, connection is good, but social media gives us this illusion that we're staying connected, and especially like the amount of accessibility that you're supposed to now have to a restaurant. This is kind of like maybe what I should have brought up when we were talking about like the 80s and 90s, is that like they want so much out of you. So if they comment, you're supposed to comment back.
Right.
If they leave a review, you're supposed to review them back. Like there's outside of these four walls, there's still so much that you are supposed to be taking care of. And then there's the entitlement of maybe your guests or the public thinks that you should be that accessible. And so like if you're not, then you're an asshole.
Right.
If you are, like the weird connection that you're supposed to have is kind of like this facade.
Right. I mean, a lot of things going through my head right now. And every minute, every second you spend responding to a post, creating a post, being present for somebody who's never even come into your restaurant, right, is 1 minute that you're not being present for the people who are closest to you, your staff, the people who do come into your restaurant. And that's the stuff that is going to make you happy, And I think it's gotten to the point, and it's funny because like we did it to ourselves. We are responsible for this. And this is when I say marketing is the bane of human existence.
Yeah.
It's because like you have to market. Like I'm not saying marketing is like don't market your business. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying marketing gets to this point where it just gets unreasonable. And it's only as reasonable as the next person is willing to do it, right? And I have to be as reasonable as that or like as willing as that person to market myself. But there's so many unreasonable people out there who are so obsessed with being the best and winning that like it's just like that's not what it's about. But we choose to do it. We make the choice that I'm going to invest this time and energy into these outlets.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fear-based for the most part. If I don't do it, what will happen to me?
Yeah, I mean, I think you already said that like the common need is connection. That's really all you
Right.
need. But like if you're at home and you're being hit up, or like you feel like you're with your wife and your two kids,
Right, you
and
can't
like
escape it.
And you're it's the same thing you're saying. Is like you're over here thinking that you're connecting to your restaurant, whereas you're missing maybe however many minutes, however many days, however many years
Right.
of your family.
Right.
The true connection.
Exactly. And I think the point what I was trying to make earlier with like we're guilty of, it's our fault, is like we've conditioned the consumer to expect that instant reply.
Those dopamine hits.
Right. We've conditioned the consumer to be always right. Like the restaurant industry is about creating an experience. There's an act, there's a facade going on. Like we're trying to get you to unplug from your world to give you a false reality when you're in these four walls. So you can just be present and enjoy your family. So like, it's just like, there's this false reality. We created that false reality in creating these experiences, but now that false reality is spilling over to the digital world, you always have to be on and you always have to be putting out this facade. And at what point can we just be humans? Can we just go back to just being passionate about the thing that I do and being rewarded for being good at the thing that I do and having that be enough?
Well, I'd say no, you can't put like the rabbit back in the hat or whatever, Jack back in the box.
Well, this is where I think we have to go from a place that, like, my mission statement is to change the world.
Yeah.
Through empowering and inspiring the restaurant industry. So I think part of the empowerment is obviously like, here's how you run a business. Here's how you become a better person. And your restaurant's only going to be as good as the people behind it. So if you want a good restaurant, start working on yourself.
Yeah.
And start
100%.
lifting up the people around you.
Yeah.
Like, that's a part of it. But then the other part of it, and the stuff that I'm really passionate about today, like, I kind of get lost in the details of running restaurants. I'll be honest. My eyes start to cross when we start talking about P&Ls and shit like that. I like the stuff at 30,000 feet. Like, what's the big picture?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in society right now? And how do we go from getting our heads down and doing the work, being absorbed with all the shit we have to do, to like look up and say, where the fuck are we going?
Yeah.
And do we want to go there? Because guess what? We're this, arguably, they say either the second or third largest industry in the world. The government, then healthcare, then restaurants. But the restaurants have the most influence. And I don't think we're aware of our influence. And I think that if we can start sharing knowledge, yes, about how to run a restaurant, but then it's like, what's the next layer? How to be a better person. Okay, then what's the next layer? How do we become better communities? What's the next layer? How do we become a better nation? How do we make the world a better place? I think that comes from looking out and saying, here are the trends that are happening. Do we want to go in that direction? Or can we share perspective? Can we share knowledge? And can we start making conscious decisions? And I think what's hopeful right now is that I kick the shit out of the internet all the time, there are benefits. And the benefit is, yes, information is moving faster than ever. And you can get access to those perspectives. So you can get out of your little silo and see what other people are doing.
Yeah.
There's hope to that. That's the part. I think there's one resource that's the most valuable resource. It is podcasts, because it's still one of those platforms that's very hard to fake. To your point, like, you have to be present, you have to give a fuck, you have to be curious, you have to be real. And I think those real messages reverberate louder and they ripple out further, right? Now it's no matter of whoever has the most money and resources controls the message, but it's who has the best message controls the message. So I think we just have to be really conscious within like the four walls of the industry to say, like, the world hinges on us feeding it. How can we start influencing the consumer? How can we start pushing back on the consumer and educating and literally, if our job is to ripple out, make our team better, how do we make our communities better by educating them? And not everybody wants to do that. I don't want to piss off my customers. I don't want to sound almighty and like.
Well, as a restaurant tour, that's like way bigger.
Right.
That's like you're talking politics, and you're talking like with a restaurant owner, like, to me, I would say stay the fuck out of politics.
Right.
Or like this bigger message, because people get offended. It's crazy. We couldn't put that pressure on the restaurant industry because like tech giants are fucking huge.
Right.
And like they're doing everything they can to put tablets in kids' hands.
Right.
And like you grow up now very differently than maybe I did in the 90s. And I do think that that's going to have an effect on what we call a restaurant today.
Oh, I don't disagree. I think that there's going to be those conveniences, right? And there's going to be ghost kitchens aren't going away. Delivery, third-party apps aren't going away. But I do think what also is not going away are humans.
Yes. No, 100%. There's more and more every day.
Yeah, exactly. We don't evolve at the rate at technology. The thing that's hopeful is that the only thing that is arguably that can evolve faster than technology is culture. We have the ability to change values and change culture faster than ever before. And I think it's a matter of getting the message out of, what is the culture that we want?
Yeah.
What is a culture? It's a vision of what the future looks like. It's core values that we can all agree on.
Yeah.
And how do we as a nation start having these conversations? Yes, political conversations. And I'm not left or right. I'm a very middle of the road kind of person. We need government. We need free capital. We need capitalism. They're meant to bounce each other out.
Yeah.
Right. We need this stuff, but we also need to get out and start controlling the narrative a little bit and being influencers within our community.
Yeah.
Because we have the influence. And I don't think more influence than the government, I would say. more influence than the healthcare system.
Yeah.
We can influence communities to put people into government, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's going too big, but like that's the stuff that gets me excited is like that. Like I'm trying to get ahead of it, you know?
Well, that's big.
I know.
That's
man.
very
I'm a
big.
dreamer, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. I feel like I'm at a point where it's just like I'm going to be as nice to everybody that I come in contact, and I will be kind to my neighbor. And like the old Michael Jackson quote: "Take a look at yourself in the mirror and be the change you want to be." And that's how you change the world.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. Like, don't stop being nice to people. Just start. It all starts with you. Transformation comes from the inside out.
Yeah.
You do better to be a better version of yourself. And what's going to happen naturally is that is going to influence others.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do with Restaurant Unstoppable is behind every great restaurant's a great person. And we're trying to give perspective to and get into the minds of these people. I mean, I asked a lot of questions about like, talk to me about how you scaled your business, but a lot of the questions I'm asking, who are you?
Yeah.
Where did you come from?
Yeah.
What are your values? Why do you do the things you do? And that's really how I'm trying to use the inspire and empower. Inspire to be a better person, you know? And I don't think it's going to be instant overnight, but if this becomes a competition to be the best version of yourself possible and to make it about other people, and then when you realize that it's whoever's the best at creating opportunities for others, like if that's the game, the infinite game that we get into, not like, and I'm not saying profit's bad, but you know, profit, we need it to create opportunity for others and to provide security, right?
Yeah.
But we don't really need that much as humans to be happy, you know?
I agree. I mean, the connection is the main thing. All right, let's get off this topic for a second. I want to know a little bit about how you used to run the podcast and where we are now, because your entrepreneurial journey is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You know, basically getting rid of everything, hopping in a truck, getting a camper halfway through this thing.
I'll try to be quick about it. So basically started the podcast just because I was looking for it. Started with like a 30-minute, like I was following the rules. This is what a good podcast is supposed to be, less than 30 minutes.
Did you have a podcast that you were like, I want to kind of like run it like this?
My earliest inspiration, I would say, is probably John Lee Dumas's Entrepreneur on Fire, where it was like a 30-minute, an episode a day, you know, where he's like asking the same questions, like rapid fire next. I started with that. As I got more comfortable on the mic, as I started exploring other podcasts, I found like Andrew Warner's Mixergy, which was more of that like slow, investigative interview. Like, I'm going to understand you and your business and how you scaled it. And I think over time, and also a lot of the influence I get, I'll be honest, is from Joe Rogan. I know not everybody loves Joe Rogan, but I think that his ability just to be curious and to be present and to be open-minded and to hear stories from different perspectives and to be able to turn off that inner dialogue of like, this is what I believe, I'm here to learn what you believe.
Yeah.
Is really like where I'm trying, like that has also influenced me. Also, I went from an hour to 2 hour long conversations because it's hard to be present in 1 hour, you know? It's when you can really slow down and just be present and go along. I feel like I'm just able to, because I don't do a lot of research beforehand, like I can say my interview is my research.
Yeah.
So, in terms of how I found my guests, we kind of touched on that earlier. I was following like, you know, awards. The more I dove into that world, I was like, well, wait a second. The show started to evolve and I started to get more into like, who are you? What are your values? How do you run your business? I started to realize that the people that are winning these awards are fucking horrible business people. Like, they're just great chefs who are good at being flashy and get media.
They got a great PR agency.
Yeah. And that's a big part of it too, is like they're good at like promoting their clients.
Yeah.
So like there's like this game that's being played. And when your job is to report on that and to share the truth, you start to realize, do I want to promote this world? Like, is this part of this part of the change I want to create?
Yeah.
Is like getting out of that game. You know, I also, what else did I, so, I mean, very early in the podcast, it was about like the restaurant. Tell me about your restaurant. Like, what makes your restaurant successful? It didn't take me long to realize that it's not about the restaurant, it's about the people behind the restaurant. So that was part of the evolution. Today, you know, so it evolved from all digital interviews, and then it went in 2018, I started traveling, and the goal was to do all in-person interviews. And then it became less about what are your accolades and more about what is like your status, your social status within the community as a restaurateur. Like restaurant owners know restaurant owners. They know who they're fucking kicking my ass right now. Like that's the person that we're all trying to beat. You know, like that's our competition.
Yeah.
They know it's a small industry. People talk. They know who the assholes are.
Yeah.
They know who was born into money and they're just throwing money at their businesses, making beautiful spaces, but don't know what the fuck they're doing. So the show over time started to be more of like, who do you think I should talk to? So I would have a couple interviews lined up in an area and I would try to get recommendations and like, you know, let it happen more organically. But my challenge was being out on the road long enough to have the organic recommendations come to me, because I would have to leave because I could only afford to be on the road for a month.
Yeah.
So I was paying rent, doing all this other stuff. So I was always working towards being on the road full time. The pandemic slowed that down, obviously.
But this was always the goal.
Yeah, this was the goal. The camper, I mean, I was toying around with the idea of having a camper. In full transparency, I couldn't afford to buy one until recently.
Yeah.
One that I felt comfortable living in, at least, you know. $200,000 school loan debt. I didn't get into my aviation career, but you know, I was a commercial pilot before this, and I spent $200,000 to become a commercial pilot.
Flying Southwest planes?
I flew for wow. It was a Dash 8 52 passenger airplane for Commute Air, which operated under the United banner.
Why did you stop that, dude? Don't commercial pilots make like a lot of fucking money?
So I stopped, and again, full transparency, I shouldn't have been a commercial pilot. You know, colorblind, dyslexic, ADHD. Yeah. I
Flying
became,
people around in an Airbus 747.
Exactly. So I
How the fuck did you get past all that?
hard work and discipline.
Nice. Or like lying.
Well, not divulging the full truth. No, I mean,
You want to get ahead in life? Just lie.
So like in full, yeah, I mean, honestly, when I was a young kid, what appealed to me, why I fell in love with becoming, the idea of becoming a commercial pilot was freedom. Freedom is my biggest core value. I want to be able to be free to travel the world, to have experiences, to have money in like security. All the pilots I knew were the coolest dudes that had beautiful wives and nice cars.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I wanted. I fell in love with the lifestyle, and I really wasn't self-aware like most 16, 17-year-old kids are,
Yeah.
you know, especially boys. I feel like are less self-aware than girls. So I didn't come into my full self-awareness, my full identity of what am I good at, what am I bad at. I also had a chip on my shoulder because I came up in a school system which takes people with learning disabilities and they say, okay, all the idiots stand up now. We have to go do math in the other classroom.
Yeah, you're going to the portables.
So like I came up with this
know about
complex,
that.
right? Like I came
go to
up,
school in a trailer.
I had a complex that I was a dummy growing up
Yeah.
because I had like my intelligence wasn't being utilized as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, like my intelligence is social and emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It's being able to read a room instantly. It's being able to tell when somebody's lying to me. Like I'm not great at reading words, but I can read a person like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those things don't serve you well as a cog in a wheel.
No,
you know?
the school system's fucked. I mean,
Well,
it's really for
they're
a
doing
certain
their-
percentage.
right.
I mean, and it's like the hardest. Like anyone who says I'm going to go be a teacher, I'm like, holy shit, you are a savior to this
Right.
planet because this is a hard fucking job.
It's-
Especially with the
yes.
kids these days. Like
Right.
you're got a whole
Yeah.
gambit of people in a classroom.
And I think that they thought they were doing the best thing for me, and they probably, hindsight being 2020, gave me what I needed.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I just don't think that they realized what kind of psychological damage you do to a kid
Yeah.
when you pull them away from all their peers and say you have to go learn differently. And the kids that you're learning with are like the short bus kids.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
no,
you're just like,
I
son
can-
of a bitch,
I
I'm one
can-
of these kids.
I can totally relate.
Yeah, so it gives you a complex. So I had a chip on my shoulder to prove something, that I'm not stupid. So I worked really hard, and I would take lessons 3 or 4 times. I wouldn't give up until I passed. But I was spending 3 or 4 times as much because a lesson is in an airplane with a flight instructor burning fuel and buying someone's time.
Yeah.
So I just my strength is also my weakness. But I also learned because of that, when you lean into your weaknesses, when your weaknesses are exposed, your strengths will get you by. And the last exam I took as a student becoming a commercial pilot to get all the credits I needed was a GPS elective. And my flight instructor said, I'm gonna pass you. But if you were anybody else, I wouldn't. And the reason why I'm passing you is because I like you. And I want you to be successful, and you were there for me when I needed you. Because he was also a friend. Because like your flight instructors are last year's graduates.
Well, that's scary as fuck.
Yeah. So, and he said, just promise me if I sign off on you, you won't fly into inclement weather by yourself. Like you'll have somebody with you who's like has more instrument experience. Okay. So that's what I departed my education with that mindset of like, should I really be a pilot? So like from the age of 22 to 26, I was flying, reporting traffic. I did a VFR flight out in the Marianas Islands doing Part 135 VFR, which means visual flight rules, and I was doing cargo and passengers. It was never in inclement weather, basically. So I never had to. So anyway, where am I going with this? I realized, and I got my first job in the regionals. I didn't do great on the interview with like the technical stuff, but the guy was like, I could see myself sitting with you for 2 hours on a flight. That's half the battle, because you're hiring people based off of culture fit too in the airlines. Like, is this person going to be a pain in the ass to fly with?
Yeah, but they also need to be able to see.
Right. So,
hey man, you got the job. I like you. I should fail you.
So the dyslexia,
I'm gonna let it go.
That probably skirt under the rug a little bit, but the color blindness, you can't fake that. But you can get a statement of demonstrated ability, a SOTA is what they call it. And that's what I got, a statement of demonstrated ability. I just took a light. So I'm color deficient. Like I can see that Bert is wearing a red, blue, and yellow shirt. Or is that Ernie?
That's
Which the one on the left?
Bert. No, Ernie's on the left.
Okay. Yeah. So which one did I say? Bert? Ernie. Ernie's the one I was talking about. Yellow, blue, red.
Yeah.
So like I can see it, but it's probably not as vibrant.
Okay.
Yeah. Where are we going with this? Do you want to talk about that stuff or other stuff?
No, I'm still reeling that just being somebody's friend got you a
why did I get out of aviation
license, dude?
Because when I was 27 years old, I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, do you know how it's not rewarding to go to work and not be good at your job? And to be in fear of, if I make a mistake, one, I could lose my pilot license. Worse, I could kill people.
Yes.
And I went to work every day worrying that I was going to put a number into a machine backwards.
Yeah.
So $200,000 of debt, 10 years of my life, I made the decision to resign from aviation.
Damn.
Yeah.
That was probably a tough decision.
Dude, it was the worst time of my life. So they talk about like fear, like what the fuck am I going to do? I just spent 10 years of my life going down this path that wasn't right for me. And now I'm buried in school loan debt and I want to work in restaurants. Fuck me.
Yeah.
How can you pay off your debt?
By getting into more debt.
Right. By going I always had a dream of opening my own restaurant. My parents were like, have you learned nothing?
Yeah.
Like, don't do this. But they also didn't know what they were doing. And even if you do know what you're doing, it's hard work. But yeah, man. So I thought, if I can't work in restaurants, because I'm never going to pay off my school loan debt working in restaurants, I'm going to work with restaurants. And I thought I would get into sales, wine sales. And that's when I got the job at the winery while I was in school for marketing and hospitality, and how I had the ability to listen to 16 hours of audio every day. Because I was in the cellar by myself as the assistant winemaker learning about wine to maybe become a wine sales rep. And then from the winery, I became a podcaster.
So how long was it until you quit any kind of job and went full-time podcaster?
Probably 6 years, 7 years.
Okay.
I was also living off of the goodwill of a lot of friends and family too. Like I had one friend who took me in and basically would let me pay what I could. Like we'll start at $200 a month rent. And then as things grow with the podcast, you'll pay more. I think by the time I left, I was paying him $500 a month.
Yeah.
And then from there, I eventually got to the point where it just slowly kept growing,
Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened. Oh, what I would do is I would travel get like 3 months of content doing kind of what I'm doing now, but living out of the back of a Honda Fit and like crashing on people's couches and stuff. Like the listeners would like let me crash.
You were really in a Honda Fit?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, Honda Fit.
Dude,
gang,
that was
gang.
my dream car.
Dude,
I just got to learn how to dream bigger.
Yeah.
So yeah, my Honda Fit, I loved it too. And if I didn't outgrow, I would still be driving a Honda Fit.
Yeah, you can't put a trailer on that thing.
No.
Maybe you could though.
Yeah.
It fits everything.
I went from a Honda Fit to a CRV because like I still needed a little more space.
Yeah.
And then the pickup truck. But what I would do is bank the content and then go live in Thailand. For 2018 and 19, I lived in Thailand for 3 months each year. And the reason why I was doing that is it was $600 to get there, and then I was paying like $100 a month for rent. And
that's crazy.
On the beach. And the food is even less expensive.
Yeah.
You know? So that's what I did 2018 and 19, and I probably would have continued to do that through until I could have my own place.
Yeah.
The pandemic happened, pivoted to focus more on trying to create continuity and membership. Then the world opened back up, and I was like, wait a second, I like that more. I'm going to go back to what I was doing. So the community kind of took a hit. Still have aspirations to bring it back. I just need to grow a team of people to manage that for me so I can do what I love.
Yeah.
And then basically 2021, got my first time as an adult, had my own mattress that I purchased. And I think 2021, how old was I? 35 years old?
It seems about right around here in Los Angeles.
35 years old. It was a big deal. I could buy my own mattress. I was like, this is my mattress.
I made it.
I chose it.
Yes.
I laid on it first. This is my mattress.
There's only one.
It was a
like
big deal. I had a studio apartment, and then things continued to get better. 2022, I moved into a nice apartment. Well, nice relative to what I'm used to, 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
You know, it was going to be my HQ, and then we're going to grow from there. And then I realized I couldn't have the nice apartment and get the content that I wanted to get, i.e. the way I wanted to get it, by more investigative journalism, talking to people, and just getting after it. And so I got out of the apartment, bought a camper. My credit score finally got over 700.
Nice.
That was another part of the challenge too, is that, you know, with all the debt, like I chose to default on my school loans because I was paying $1,100 a month on my school loans.
Yeah.
And it was like, I couldn't get out of it. I was just treading water.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to take a hit on my credit so I can build up assets.
Yeah.
So I can pay off my debt.
God, what a fucking weird cycle.
Right. So, yeah, man. So that's where I am today. 4 months on the road, traveling the country. I started in New Hampshire, went south because it was March when I left, and March is cold in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Went south, made my way through the Carolinas, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, all the southern states, Texas. Stopped for about a month and a half in Phoenix. Collaborated with my sponsor, Restaurant Systems Pro. Great organization, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that because they're my sponsor. Like, it's just a really great organization. I feel so fortunate to have them behind me. If you're looking for an enterprise solution, Restaurant Systems Pro.
There it is.
You know, your boy Bruce is sponsored by Restaurant Systems Pro.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. We're going to get you on board.
Let's go, dude. We'll take your money.
Yeah. You want their money, dude. They're good people. Like, you'll feel good about promoting them.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, we've been lucky enough to only
Yeah.
promote people that we really believe in. So
Yeah.
I ain't gonna.
And
I'm gonna sell something I don't believe in. I feel like that goes against everything that
Yeah.
I'm really all about, anyways.
And there's more and more podcasts
Unless
popping
the price
up.
is right.
Right. There's more and more podcasts popping up where their whole existence is to sell something.
Yeah.
That, you know, that you're not supposed to be aware of. It's meant to be a subconscious thing that's happening.
Well, it's kind of. I meant to touch on this when we were talking about it something earlier, but the fact that podcasts are so popular, and like I think it was when we were talking about technology, like kind of like excelling, but podcast is very like old school. They fucking did this like in the 1920s, you know,
Right.
like when they're doing full plays on the radio and stuff.
Right.
But what? Like
Well, talk radio has always been around.
Was that?
Talk radio.
Yeah, talk radio has been around forever. I mean, like that's essentially a podcast in a way. I mean, these are just like Joe Rogan has no. They're just people coming on and having a conversation.
I'm so jealous of his situation. Like, I would love to get to the point where Restaurant Unstoppable becomes big enough that if I invite you to be a guest on the show, like you're willing to go take a 2-day trip to New Hampshire, you know? And
of course.
And I'll fly you out. I'll put you up. like that would probably be almost as expensive as living on the road full time.
Yeah, if you look at it like that.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Are we over time?
No, I just need to turn that down. Well, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
oh man, technology is fucking hitting us hard, dude. Interesting question.
Wasn't talking to you.
The whole thing's been recorded. The feds got it. No, I just wonder what it is like about people being able to connect like on that level, because everyone listens to podcasts and there's a podcast for everyone out there, and like a lot of them you're not watching it. Most of our downloads are from Apple Podcasts, and it's like, you know, my wife has the podcast she likes. There's a podcast for fucking everything.
Yeah. Well, that was the differentiator between podcasts and radio, is that for the first time it became on demand, which was huge. Where like you don't have to be present for the broadcast. You can listen to
everything's on demand though
right.
now.
But again, back to marketing is the bane of human existence. When you look at what marketing has done to these channels of communication over time, is they end up owning the channels of communication. So with radio, like you know, you get these parties left or right that buy up, and like they have people, executives that are political, that are controlling the narrative on whether it be radio, TV, and now it's happening with the internet, you know, where you have these behemoth organizations like Google, Amazon that are, you know, I think it's pretty safe to say majority one party usually.
Yeah.
And they fucking control the internet.
Yeah.
And obviously that the messages that they want to get out are going to be the ones that get out, you know? And I'm like, again, I'm very middle of the road, but it's not okay when one side has the platform to get the information out. There's no balance there.
Yeah.
You know, you need to hear both sides of the story, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons why I love podcasts, is because there hasn't been a Google iTunes. I feel like Apple is I don't know. Honestly, don't know enough to say about this, but I don't get the same like left-right vibe from Apple.
I feel like certain things probably get buried in Apple. Like there are certain, I only say that because like when I'm trying to listen to certain artists, sometimes they don't make it as easy.
Right. Spotify is pretty good about not being restrictive.
Yeah.
You know, they really let freedom of speech happen on those platforms.
Yeah.
So that's why I think podcasting is, and plus it's the one thing that we're literally back to the human element, dude. It's the one thing that we're hardwired to process.
Yeah.
People talking.
Yeah.
Like you even think of like,
understand.
yeah, dude, you look at like writing, we take writing for granted, like the written word.
Yeah.
That's like it's been around for thousands of years, but it was reserved for like the nobles and the fucking kings and the priests.
Yeah.
It isn't until the most recent couple 100 years that people like you and me know how to read.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not the normal medium.
Yeah.
Like
the printing press changed the fucking world.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Because
I think
that's how news traveled too.
exactly. And that, guess who owned the printing presses? The people that
big
want
wigs.
the politicians, dude. So I think that what you're seeing right now, one of the reasons why I'm so anti-social media is because those platforms are being bought, and the politics are buying the messaging on that. And if you have money and power, you have the resources to pay people to go through the fucking motions, because that's half the battle of social media, is just going through the motions and playing the algorithm and tagging the right people and chasing vanity metrics.
Yeah.
Like what determines who you get as a guest on the show? Whoever's going to share your thing and get you the most exposure. That's another reason why I use word of mouth, because fuck vanity metrics. Like that's not a good way to get to the truth.
Yeah, I mean, personally, what I've noticed is that like the guests that I've like always wanted, or I was like chasing after, or somebody that was like, oh, this is somebody that I like. I just felt like the people that are as hungry as I am, that are on the same level as I am, there's a lot of information there. Everyone's kind of heard this story once or twice before, and you know, getting that unknown person, or putting a spotlight on somebody that maybe they're not the loudest person in the room.
Right.
They have the most value.
But they know how to run a business.
Yeah.
And they have respect from their community.
Yeah.
Like those are the people I'm going after. And the only way I know how to find those people is to talk to other people.
Yeah.
And to make myself available to them whenever they can do it.
Yeah.
You know? So that's why I live this lifestyle, because it's the only way I know how to do what I want to do with the resources I have to do it.
Yeah, well, with the rise of influence too, and people being an influencer a full-time job, and, working towards that kind of influential status, that has, to me, in the past couple of years, been the biggest game changer in like running a restaurant, is that these people have more control over who goes where than like the LA Times does.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And they're being bought.
You think they're being bought?
Are you talking about influencers
Yeah.
or 100%?
Yeah.
Have you ever hired an influencer to come in here and take photos?
We've never, not here, no.
Yeah, 100% people, it's been recommended. Like, that's the whole idea of what I'm trying to do is like, I don't know the right answers, but what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What should we have to do? And I think, again, like, where would influencers be if they didn't have restaurants to influence?
Yeah.
Like, or to promote? Like, all these ancillary adjacent industries that spin out of the restaurant industry need the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
If the restaurant industry gets its shit together and starts communicating like, fuck those guys. Like, I don't want to have to spend $2,000 to get an influencer in here to have everybody take a picture of my food one time and then go to the next place the influencer promotes because they're just following the Instagram wave.
Yeah.
Like, how many of those people, you're using Toast, you should be able to know how many of those people, and then you specifically, but if anybody's using any type of POS like that, like when they come in, like, how did you find us? And, oh, was it that ad or that promotion, that collab? Cool. Like, see how many times they come back.
Yeah.
Like, is that the kind of guest you want? Like, one-time guests?
Yeah.
It's like the new Groupon.
The new Groupon?
Yeah. Where everyone's just looking for a deal, or the deal they're looking for is like, I got that on my Instagram.
Well, what's interesting is that the influencer comes in, and then you have like the mini influencers that come in, and
Right.
then the mini influencers that come in from them. Like, it's like you have somebody that has, let's say, 100 to 200,000 followers
Right.
comes in, and then you have your guys around 60, 70,000, and then you have like the people just getting started, but it's like a weird trickle effect. It's like, this person said it was sick, so I'm gonna hop on that train,
Right.
and I'm gonna go to that restaurant. And so what happens is you might have paid $2,000 to the guy with 200,000 followers, but because that person said it, you have another 20 influencers that come in, and then maybe out
ripples
of
out.
all those brand new guests that you have a whole.
Because
a whole lot of
influencers
them
are
that will
following
stay.
influencers, and there's the influencer.
Well, everyone with a phone is an influencer now,
Right.
And it's like if you're one of those people that take your camera eats first, you know who you are.
Right.
Like you're somewhat, you're putting that out. Like, I'm here, check me out.
Right. But do you think they should pay?
Who should pay?
Influencers.
Do I think they should pay?
Yeah.
Pay for what?
The food.
There's a difference between giving an influencer a free meal and then giving an influencer $2,000.
Right.
I would have no problem if somebody said, maybe I would. I haven't done any collaborations either because I feel like that's not a collaboration really. That's you, but you're essentially paying food for their services.
Right.
So it's like as a smart business owner, it would be a smart move to give them the free food.
I technically could be considered an influencer.
Of course.
I'm not influencing the general public, but I'm
Yeah.
influencing restauranteurs. I always offer to pay. I think didn't I offer to pay for
Yeah, I
like the
was never
shirt?
gonna let you pay.
You didn't let me,
Yeah.
but I never expect a free meal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think, I don't know, man. I just think that if they're profiting off of your business, then they can help support your business with all the food that they're gonna have to purchase that's an operational expense.
Yeah, but it's like the people highest up and like bigger and bigger, like they don't have to pay for anything. Everyone kind of just like, it's that social currency.
Right.
It's like, I got you, man. Or it's like celebrities, they get free shit all the time.
Right. And again, I think that is the restaurant, that's the industry's fault. Like,
Yeah.
'cause hospitality, you look at the synonyms of hospitality, warmth, generosity, conviviality, like all we do is give.
Yeah, it's 100%. I'm probably in that sense of being a business owner. Like sometimes I feel like my managers will be like, dude, this isn't a charity. Like you
Right.
gotta like, how well do you know that person? Like,
Right.
why'd you just give them 50% off
But
a
it's-
16 pie
It's
order?
become an industry standard that like the most generous, like we have to give, because if we don't, the guy down the street did, and we're gonna look like assholes. And it's like, listen, like there is no shame in being fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
And like there's being all about profit, and then there's recognizing that you need profit to take care of people, provide opportunity to people, provide security to people, and to give security to yourself.
Yeah.
And like if we all start doing the same shit, then we set standards.
Yeah.
You know, we have to respect ourselves before anybody else will.
I 100% agree with that. And it's like, I would like to be on the forefront of that, but there's just so many people in this industry because it's so hard not doing things the right way.
Right.
And when I say the right way, either legally or like
What is the right way?
Well, I would say, in my opinion, is it starts from 30,000 miles up, you know,
Yeah.
treating your team with the most upright respect, looking at yourself in the mirror, making sure that you're working on yourself so that everyone else below you is working on themselves, and it's a trickle down effect.
But where would you have gone to know that 20 years ago?
Well, like you said, like you were like, what did you say off camera? Like, where are like 38-year-old men going to have a conversation about their emotions? Like, was this happening
like
20 years ago? And no, it's like I almost was in tears on your podcast, and it's like we're just sitting around talking about feelings. That's a lot about what this podcast is about.
So I think you could say, and a lot of people listening to this would probably get behind the sentiment that your job as a restaurant owner is to serve your team by giving them a picture of what the job done right looks like, the expectations, clearly spelling it out, communicating when they're doing a good or bad job, giving them whatever they need to do a better job.
Yeah.
Right? Where does the restaurant owner go to get that? How do they know what the job done right looks like?
Well, I would go to audiobooks.
Right.
And podcasts.
And I think that's why there's so much hope right now, is because for the first time ever, you have a place to go to know what the job done right looks like and what is normal, what isn't normal. We can choose to listen to each other and not be influenced by the bane of human existence, marketing telling us we need something or we need to do something, because if we don't do it, and the majority of people that are sharing marketing advice online are marketers who benefit from the advice that you're taking. You know,
I feel like that's pretty easy to see through too.
Yeah. So it's just like, listen, is there truth to what they're sharing? Yes. Is the fact that what they're saying is true a problem? I would also say yes.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be the ones to say that. Absolutely because it doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve, like, we need to get our heads above the clouds and go, oh, there's a fucking mountain coming. You know, like that's what needs to happen. And that's why I like to have like these. So on my show, like very similar to what you do, like you share the story, right? But then I've listened to like 4 of your episodes. That's all I needed to hear.
Well, there's not 1,000, I'll tell you that much. Right. So you've listened to about
the fact that I even listened to 4 is
a
statement, because I usually don't listen to other restaurant podcasts.
I appreciate you taking the time.
I enjoy it, man. You do a great job. You kind of go like me. You go into these little like pockets of conversation, but I try to make it a point to say like, where are we now and where are we going?
Yeah.
So I can hear from other people what they think the future looks like. So we can find that vision of the future that sounds the best and start echoing that.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think restaurant owners should pay for influencers?
I think that if people are profiting from your business, well, let me ask you this. If you are a corporate office and you are catering an event and you're feeding, like, you know, like, should they pay for that catered food? Like, they're promoting your food to all their employees. You know, like, maybe people would argue that's guerrilla marketing where you give away a free catered meal, right, to get the taste. But I'm thinking the point is, like, their business hinges on your business, so they should pay to at least support you with the food that they're going to eat so they can have a business.
Yeah.
Like, I think when you give away free meals, you're just giving people a path of least resistance to promote you. And like, you're paying for it. Like, you, the restaurant, are paying for it. As long as you factor that into your marketing expense.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying, I think influencers should pay for their fucking meal. 100%.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. That brings up this thing. I wasn't even going to get into this, but I feel like sometimes the restaurant industry as a career, especially in America, is kind of looked at like a transitional thing or like something you're doing while you're going to school. It's maybe like, it's not really a respected career if you were like in a room full of people, even though like on the higher end, you can probably be in a room making more than a lot of people in that room.
Right.
Do you feel like tipping, if that went away, it would be a more respected industry?
If you're drawing a hard line in the sand and you have to get on one side, tipping or no tipping, I think the obvious answer is no tipping.
Yeah.
I don't think all restaurants are created equal, and not all servers are created equal. So it's a very dynamic, mixy world.
Yeah.
Like if you are a bartender at, I don't know, like name a very well-known cocktail bar in Los Angeles. You know this market better than I do.
Well, I just drink at home to be. Oh yeah, Capri Club.
Capri Club. Do you need to be good at bartending to work there? Is there a certain skill set,
Yeah, of
a
course.
knowledge base
Yeah,
that you
100%.
need? Yeah. So, I mean, is that the same experience? Is that the same? Was that mixologist, that cocktail maker,
Yeah.
the same as somebody who is working a counter at McDonald's in terms of skill set and expertise?
Well, depending on where the McDonald's is and what kind of people they're having to deal with.
Right. So, or maybe if you're, I don't know, like I'm just saying it's not as clear cut. So like, I think at the end of the day, you're paying for it as the consumer, whether that's billed to you or you're just a good person and you choose to tip.
Yeah.
So remove the choice. And if you can't afford to go out to eat while taking care of the people that you need to take care of, i.e. if you're not a tipper, then guess what? You can't afford to go out to eat. Make the decision easier for the consumer. Go cook at home.
Yeah.
Or support the other segments of the industry that rely less on tipping, like pickup, or like ghost kitchens. So
Yes.
like, that's where I see like those things aren't going away. But I think in a way one way it's benefit is more people will be able to benefit from the resources of others, the resource of a restaurant cooking for them.
Yeah.
To lower the bar,
Well said too. I just feel like if you took that, I feel like there's like a psychological thing when you tip somebody on top of like a meal that you already paid for. Maybe like there's also, it creates more entitlement. Like I'm taking care of this person, or like I'm such a good person because I tip big.
Right.
And it's like this weird thing where it's like, this is a respected craft. This is a respected position. This is how much you get.
Right.
And let's be able, a lot of restaurants rely on people coming in and being able to tip employees because wages are so high or whatnot. I get that. But to be able to get to a place where you could cut that out, everyone felt valued, everyone
Right.
made what they were supposed to make. And like, it could be a long-term career with benefits,
100%.
high pay. I just think that, and this might sound crazy, but I just feel like, I've heard when you go to Europe, like they're not taking your tip. Like there's places that just like,
Right.
they would scoff at you even trying to do that.
Back to culture being the one saving grace where it can exponentially change, And I think this is a perfect example of how the restaurant industry has the power to influence people.
Yeah.
But the only thing that's holding us back is us getting on the same page as to what we should do.
Yeah.
Right? When the answer is so clearly obvious, like reverse engineer what it costs you to run your business. What profit do you want to make? Add the profit onto that and be unapologetic.
Yeah.
Like this is what it costs. This is how a business runs. If we are a business, why shouldn't we run like everybody else?
Yeah.
And there's changing business models too. Membership models, like more experiential based models, like what Talk is doing, where like you're paying for an event, an experience.
Yeah.
Like we have to stop thinking like the old ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people have like kind of either they've put the surcharges in or they've automatically added tip, and it's really in Los Angeles that's illegal starting July 1st, I think.
Right.
Like there can be no because
Even if they say service charge?
yeah, I don't
Well,
think
that's
like.
fucking stupid.
But a lot of the service charges and surcharges and stuff, maybe like because it's not being presented on your menu. So it's like you kind of are getting a little bamboozled if it says $24 and then all of a sudden your meal actually costs you $38. unknowing that like there was all these surcharges or service
but that's the
charges.
thing. Like you just say you want to make 15% profit.
Yeah.
Right. You look at, okay, what is it going to cost me for my cost of goods, my labor, my, your prime costs. And then you look at all those items. You don't have to do exactly a 15% markup on all those items. That's when menu engineering comes in, and you find like your dogs and your like stars and the things that have good profit margins. Like you take a little less to make it more reach for people, but there's better margins there. Like there's things you can do, but as long as your overall profit on every item equals out to 15%, they don't need to know. Bake it into the price.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just like the sticker price, though, that people would gawk at. And that's why these like surcharges for insurance or your 18% that we're adding on because there's more than 4 people. It's like, if we can just be upfront and honest and be like, yo, this pizza's going to cost you $45, but there's no tipping. You come up, that's what it is. You get great service and everyone gets a livable wage.
Right. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
But who's to blame? The restaurant industry.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, dude, who's to blame with anything is people,
right?
Because we can't even agree on X and Y when they're basically the same thing, but they're being called something different,
right? So again, I think it comes to ignorance, and I don't think ignorance is a bad word, but it's kind of, when I say that word, you'd probably be insulted, right? I called you ignorant, but I think
ignorance is bliss.
Well, right, but at the same time, ignorance is literally just not knowing.
Yeah,
and like you can't be mad at somebody for just not knowing.
Yeah.
So the only way we're going to change that is by talking about it and like spelling out why it's the obvious answer. But like that comes from the inside out. Is it time to open? Okay.
No, you were good.
Sweet. Yeah.
I just wish that everybody cared as much about those kind of things because you can't make somebody care.
It's all we knew.
Yeah.
Like if you're alive, if you're in your 30s today, like all you know is tipping. It's baked into our culture.
Yeah.
But culture can change, but only if we share perspective.
Yeah. And everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
Which again, it's pretty hard these days.
It doesn't happen overnight.
No, of course. So. Can you give me 3 memorable guests that you've had on? Because of the lessons that they shared?
I have a canned answer for this.
Or at least one. Like the one that's today. It doesn't have to be the best or whatever, but I ask you that question.
Koons.
Oh, man. Oh, shit, dude. I love it. I'll take it.
Honestly, dude, I'm not gonna say specific names, but I will say, generally speaking, it's the person that I never heard of that has an incredible story. Let me ask you, have you ever heard of Fox Restaurant Concepts?
Only because of your podcast.
Okay.
And they're in Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Fox Restaurant Concepts, probably arguably one of the most successful restaurant groups that are like fine dining, full service. Like they just crushed it. They grew like crazy. Sam Fox behind Fox Restaurant Concepts. Most people in the industry, if you're like in the industry, know that name.
Yeah.
But do you know who Regan Jasper is?
No.
Regan Jasper was the first, like one of the first hires that Sam Fox had. He recruited Regan from a competitor in the market, and Regan wanted to open his own restaurant. And Sam said, if you help me open this restaurant, the next restaurant's yours. And he had equity in that next restaurant. And he was a partner in Sam Fox Restaurant Groups, but he was also, in my opinion, probably had a lot more to do with Sam Fox's success than Sam Fox did, because he was Sam Fox's right-hand man. Mm-hmm. He was the guy on the ground training, creating the culture, the operational partner. He was the guy that literally transformed people. Sam has a talent for concept creation and attention to detail and understanding the market, probably, from what I've been able to gather.
And money?
Well, I mean, he comes from a restaurant family, so I don't know how much money he had. I mean, he worked hard. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. But where would he have gone? Would you have ever heard the name Sam Fox if not for Regan Jasper?
Yeah.
And those are the motherfuckers I love to get on the show.
Yeah.
The people who are too busy doing the damn thing.
Yeah.
Being the best at what they do and having that be enough. And then finding them and having them just fucking blow your mind.
Yeah.
Like those are the people I love to get on this show. The people that don't care about attention, who don't look for attention, who aren't promoting themselves. I go for the people that you would never know about and have a story, the people we should be making an example of, not looking to be made an example of.
Yeah.
So those are the people I like to get on the show.
Okay.
And there's a lot of them.
All right. What about your favorite guest?
I don't know.
Come on, 11.
Dude.
Come on, over 1,000 episodes, 1,100 plus.
Dude, I'll tell you when I was the most excited.
Okay.
John Taffer.
All right.
Going back to like early podcasting, first couple hundred episodes, I thought I made it. I was like, fuck yeah, I have a celebrity on my show. Other people are going to look at this and they're going to be like, oh, if John Taffer did it. And John Taffer was a cunt.
Oh, shit, dude.
Yeah.
Whoa, didn't see
Like,
that coming, dude.
Yeah. Like, I did not enjoy the conversation. I was like, all right, let's do this. I was all excited. He's like, I got 20 minutes. Or like,
He's a fucking dick.
Yeah. He's like, I'm doing, normally I wouldn't do this, but I'm doing it for you. You know, that's my John Taffer. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Because like, you're working hard. I'm
Yeah.
like, thanks.
Yeah.
And then like, I had my format. He's like, this is how we're going to do it. And he basically just hijacked the show. And I was like, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just like, fuck, that sucked.
Yeah.
Like that sucked, you know, like, and like,
Tale as old as time.
right. So I like real conversations with real people.
Yeah, and people that want to be there, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that I feel like maybe too in the amount of conversations that you can have, you can tell who's there to just kind of brag about themselves,
Yeah.
and then somebody who's there to share
Right.
themselves.
Right. Who are just painfully vulnerable.
Yeah.
And just who are willing to share literally everything. I was worried about talking about my family today because I know if my parents listen to this, my dad would probably be a little pissed off. I don't think he's going to listen to it. Please don't use that clip because that might be the only thing he sees if it's on social media. But
That's definitely the only clip we're using.
Yeah, right? But at the same time, like, it's not his fault. He is a victim. You know, like my mom was a victim of some buddy who made a poor decision, you know, and it ruined their lives. You know, like it took their trajectory, and like my dad's probably going to work to the day he dies selling real estate. And my hope is that with this podcast, I can help him retire.
Yeah.
You know, but like I think that part of the way that I'm going to help that become a reality is by sharing his story.
Yeah.
And like letting him know, like, you know, like you're a part of the story. You know, like I'm here because I want to create content for the version of you and mom in 1990, you know, like, so people don't have to work as hard as we work and not have security.
Yeah, well, that story you told is like, I mean, in the restaurant industry, everything is so fragile, and so much can change that can change your life forever. Like, there's a lot of variables, whether it's your lease, an employee situation, like the social media, there's pitfalls, and you providing what you do is priceless in my eyes. I mean, like,
thank you,
this whole podcast, only doing in person, that was a direct steal from you. And I do feel that I had been on enough podcasts. Inspired.
And then I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, you are doing your job.
Yeah.
And I mean, you definitely can feel the difference between having a conversation face to face. Like you talk about the energy.
Right.
I can feel this feels right. It feels easy. We could talk for another hour if we wanted to.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, man. Well, thank you very much. That means a lot.
All right. So if you're not going to give me your favorite guest, your worst I will take.
Oh, dude, I'm not going to put anybody who carves out 2 hours of their life to sit with me is a good guest.
Okay. I like that.
And like I said, it's not about my benefit. It's about the benefit of my listeners.
Yeah.
So I might have not enjoyed it, but that's not to discredit the fact that one conversation that I did not resonate with somebody else on a different frequency.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's always different frequencies. That's for sure. All right. I'm getting to the end here. What advice would you give to someone starting a podcast today?
Make sure whatever you're talking about is something that you're passionate about. Because it's going to be about endurance it's just like running a restaurant, man. Like you have to love what you're doing and recognize that it's not just sitting down and having conversations like, hey, you want to open a restaurant? Oh, because you love to cook? Well, there's a business element of it too. There's editing and copywriting and promotion and networking and politicking and all this shit that comes with every other business. A lot of stuff you don't want to do, or maybe you're not good at, that you're going to have to do. it's not as
So
easy.
get ready
Yeah.
to crawl in the shit.
Yeah,
for
like
a
anything
long
else.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah. I guess that's just good advice for starting a business.
right.
All right, here's the last question.
Oh, man.
The most
We made it.
important question.
We have arrived.
For some is who's the greatest artist or band of all time? To you. To you.
Greatest artist or band of all
Who
time.
you bumping in that truck all the road one
Dude,
way?
I'm usually listening to audiobooks, man. Oh,
Okay, then do me a favor, because I know you're an audiobook guy.
yeah. Favorite author?
No, it doesn't have to be a favorite author, but one audiobook that you would recommend to anyone. Doesn't have to be restaurant related, and then I want that artist or band.
Well, right now I'm listening to The Power. Oh, what the hell is it called? Freedom and Power? Crap, I should look it up real quick.
Yeah, just open up that Audible. You know what I'm saying?
Power and Progress, our 1,000-year struggle over technology and prosperity. So it's an anthropological approach to how technology has influenced societies and who are the beneficiaries of that technology. And the reason why I'm listening to this is because of AI. And the author is it's two authors. One of them is an MIT professor, I believe, Darren Akmaloglu, and Simon Johnson. Darren's the guy I'm hoping to get on the show, so I should probably figure out how to say his name. But
Yeah.
dude, I love AC/DC.
Hell yeah.
So check out that book, AC/DC. I love classic rock, man. Nostalgia.
Yes. AC/DC, I do not think has been said.
Nice.
And they should have
Queen's
been said.
up there.
Queen has definitely been said.
Yeah.
AC/DC is great.
Yeah.
Have you read Homo Deus?
Oh, I've heard of it.
That's right. That's the book after Homo Sapiens.
Sapiens, A Brief History
Yeah.
of Humankind. Yeah, I've definitely read that like 3 times.
I didn't read it. Matt did. He gave me the Cliff Notes, and I was like, I ain't fucking reading that, dude. Robots are taking over, and we're dead.
But it's fascinating. And that's honestly speaking, like my passion lies with that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
when I go home, I'm watching documentaries on aliens and like quantum physics and the
Yeah.
idea of infinite realities.
Yeah.
Like that's the shit that gets me like, wow, like the ultimate curious questions, right?
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's like, how do we just live a happier life? You know, and like how, like that's the stuff. And I think why I find purpose in getting out of like the details of the restaurant industry and getting up to that higher level, 30,000 foot big picture thinking. Like, how do we take what we've learned studying our past to go into a future? We are so fucking privileged to have access to the wealth of knowledge we have access to go forward intentionally. Never before have we had the choice and to even be aware that consciousness is a thing, like to understand what consciousness is on a holistic level like we do today. Like, and culture is exponential. Like it changes exponentially.
Yeah.
So like when you take those things into consideration, I'm super hopeful.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's leave it there.
yeah.
Freedom for everyone.
Yeah. Awesome.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you so much.